Welcome to my podcast. Today's guest, Troy Clogg, founder of Troy Clogg Landscape Associates, started in 1985. He started really on his entrepreneurial vision when his mom said, "You can't do this or you won't succeed." And that's been driving him ever since. He has a landscape business, a snow business, which we really get into, 100 employees in the summer, 300 in the winter, including his service partners. He also recently bought a tree company. He has a supply yard that services contractors and homeowners. we dive into quite a bit. Really, we unpack the snow side of his business. You're going to learn about contracts and many different sides of it, whether you're thinking of getting into snow or you're already into snow, or whether you're an expert. You're going to hear Troy's view of the snow industry, including his work on standardization for the ISO standards for the industry. And you'll also learn about his nonprofit work. He's a very big believer in helping people. And he sells one of his products where he gives away a piece of that to a charity for every one that he sells. And we talk about that towards the end in his charity work. You're going to learn quite a bit. This is a serial entrepreneur. You're really going to love his enthusiasm and his energy, and you're going to take away a lot of good takeaways. Even if you don't do snow, I think you'll learn quite a bit about how to partner with your clients in a transparent manner to develop better working relationships and better contracts. So even if you don't do snow, there's quite a bit to learn from this person's journey. Also, if you found out about this podcast not through my newsletter and you want to sign up, you can go to my site, jeffreyscott.biz, and towards the top, there's a red button where you can click and register for my weekly newsletter. A lot of great information that I give away and share on that. Also, if you've ever thought about joining one of my peer groups for landscape business owners who also do snow, not all, but many do snow as well, but not all of them. And if you ever thought about that and want to learn more, go to my website, go to the services tab, pull down to the Leader's Edge peer group, and you can learn more about it and also apply for membership. You have to apply to be accepted. We have a great community, lots of great learning in this community. Okay, we have Troy Clogg here. You're gonna, if you're watching the video of it, it's pretty funny. He's got a Santa hat on, and if it's just the audio version, this is close to Christmas time, and he's getting ready to spend time with his family and his grandkids. And you're going to see all that and hear all that on our podcast. Here you go. Troy, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Jeffrey. Thank you for having me.
Please take a couple minutes and introduce yourself, your companies to the audience.
All right. I am Troy Clogg. Companies are Troy Clogg Landscape Associates, Troy Clogg Snow Associates, Hot Pink Deicer, Great Deal Products, Bedard Shade Tree. Those are the ones in our industry.
You've got a few things going on there, Troy.
I've got some other stuff going on, but it's fun. I like helping people.
So could you just unpack that a little bit more? We probably know you for your snow company, perhaps in the industry most, but just unpack a little bit more of what you have going on there.
For sure. So like a lot of people, I started as a young man, just knocking on doors, hey, can I cut your grass for $5 or $20 or whatever the game was? Chose a little bit of college, but then kind of couldn't afford that, and learned that the harder I worked, the more money I made. And I like serving people and working hard. So that's how the landscape side grew. The snow came on a couple of years later and has been going on for almost 40 years now. Those are the biggest businesses. So those two together are a little over 100 people in the summer and north of 300 people in the winter. The tree company, which was the last thing I listed, that's a recent acquisition. Family, friends, people I've known for a long time, just retiring out. So we added 8 or 10 more people there for deep rooting, spraying, custom shaping, a few removals. And the supply yard came on about 10 or 12 years ago. So that's out in out near where I live, actually, maybe 10 or 15 miles from the contracting office, where we sell all landscape supplies to local residents and contractors. And along with that was the birth of Hot Pink Deicer. So Hot Pink Deicer is our philanthropy side. I'm almost always wearing a heart somewhere. So I'm wearing one today. That's a pink colored blended deicer that we sell all across the United States and Canada. 15 cents from every bag sold goes directly to families financially devastated, usually due to a breast cancer situation, but it could be another cancer. And then that evolved into creating a 501c3 so that we could have Hot Pink Helpers, as it's called, a charity that could actually accept donations. So that's been going on for a couple of years now. So we have one big golf outing a year. This year, super humbled, we raised just under $100,000 in one day. So that was a fun day. And yeah, those are the entities, and that's what's going on.
You have a lot going on there, Troy.
Yeah, I don't know. I prefer the family, the grandchildren, the real estate, but I'm surrounded, very blessed, surrounded by wonderful people who make the majority of everything I just listed actually happen.
So you started when you say landscape, it's more lawn services or also landscaping?
It was, 100%, Jeffrey. It was knocking on doors and cutting grass, pulling weeds. It was anything a 17-year-old kid could do to make a buck. We focused on maintenance with very light landscape for probably the first 10 years. And then when I decided I guess I'm really going to do this forever, in my late 20s, bought the first building and evolved into construction, really blew up the snow side. And the rest is history, as they say.
Which do you love more, the lawn landscape or the snow?
Which do I love more? Well, I love serving people. So the snow side is a great emergency service. I like to, kind of feel like we're firemen, police officers. I don't want to take anything away from those wonderful folks, but that's kind of what the snow world is. You can plan for it, but you're still not sure what's going to happen. I like the creative side when it comes to design build. So we were just at an awards banquet, picked up 9 more awards this year for pools and fire and water and patios and all that fun stuff. So I think, like a lot of us, my business is a kind of a reflection of me, and I'm not really good at just doing one thing or one thing at a time. So thus, this is what you get after 40 years of wandering around doing different stuff. But I love the creative side, and I love the service, high performance side of the snow. I really do. If you don't cut the grass today, you'll cut it tomorrow. If you put the brick in crooked, you'll put it back the right way tomorrow. It's not the case with snow. One chance to get it right, one window of time to get it right. So I like that part.
You said you 100 people in the summer, 300 in the winter. So is snow half your revenue? I mean, it's more than half your employees.
Yeah, it's more than half. It's more than half. And when you then do go to the supply side, where we're selling bulk salt and selling the de-icing products, if you put the two companies together, it's way more than half the company is reliant or driven around the snow industry.
Do you look at yourself as a snow company that does landscaping?
100%. We're a snow company that does landscaping for fun while we're waiting for it to snow again.
For people that are thinking, all the time I hear, I'm getting into snow, or I'm getting out of snow, or God, we love snow, or God, I hate snow. Give some words of advice to people listening. how to reckon with all that emotion.
Yeah, well, it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. People who don't want to be controlled, so to speak, by the weather, it's not a good fit. Good, hardworking, construction-driven people who get up early, grind out a good construction day, work their 5 or 6 days. Snow can be very conflictual to their personality profiles and the way they're hardwired, because it comes on Sundays, it comes on Christmas, it comes when it darn well feels like it. So, and then the real advice is, if you're going to, like anything, don't stick your toe in the water. I mean, either do this as a business or don't, or partner up. When we go to north of 300 people, it's because we have a bunch of great service partners that help us get there. That we train, we coach, we're ISO certified, so everybody goes through all of our programs, and is required to. So so if you do start small, so whatever market you're in, there are likely a larger contractor that might help you get started for the first season or two, instead of just going out there, trying to do it all on your own in the very beginning. You can learn a lot in the first season or two working underneath the wings of a good contractor. And then if you can do it on your own, rock and roll, go get it. We're happy to help. We're teaching and training all the time.
And so do you mean start off as a subcontractor?
Yes. Never hurts. Some of my, favorite ex-employees are now business owners and subcontractors to us, as well as having their own book of business.
Yeah. Okay. That's sound advice. That's good. So if you're going to be a sub, well, let's flip that around. So if you're going to be a sub, what I'm hearing you say is, don't just be a sub for the really big guys where you're just a number, but be a sub underneath another entrepreneur who cares enough to mentor you.
100%. Well put. Yes, because it's what I don't like about what's happened to the snow industry in my years of it is the major layering of the contract gets sold by some very large entity. It gets subcontracted to another entity who likely subcontracts it to another entity, and sometime even again. That does the client a huge disservice, in my opinion. It waters it down too much. There's not that much money to be made in the industry if you're layering it 3 or 4 times. And so, you described it perfectly. Find a good entrepreneur locally who's willing to help and be okay with you getting good at what you do and doing it yourself instead of working for them all the time.
I like that. That's a great model. So you mentioned ISO certified, and I don't think everybody knows what that means. There's not many in the industry. Maybe Jim Monk up in Canada.
I do.
Big snow guy. He's ISO certified. He's in one of my peer groups. And let's take a little sidebar there. Explain what that is and how it helps.
Well, so the best thing about ISO is that it's process and system. So with or without ISO, the best run businesses are loaded with process and system, and they're not varied from, unless everybody agrees they're changing the process or system. So in the simplest of ways, that's what ISO is. Except you do pay a third party to come in and actually validate that you're doing this, both internally in your paperwork and book side, as well as out in the field, randomly going to sites during a snow event to make sure that all of your teams are performing the work within the standards. So that's the best part of the business owner. There are some marketing advantages in certain areas of the country that prefer companies to be ISO. There's some great education through that process. There's nothing ISO. I was one of the founding board members of the ASCA, and which created ISO. And so the whole goal was to help defend lawsuits and mitigate risk, because most of us in the snow business, especially here where I'm at, I say it all the time, I'm really just a risk mitigator who happens to move snow from one side of the parking lot to the other.
Yeah.
So you don't want to get sued. And if you do, you want to have a good defense that you actually did your job. And ISO is wonderful for that. So when your company becomes ISO, and then the individuals become educated and re-educated every year. Continuing education programs makes a big difference.
So just to be clear, you said you were part of the board that created ISO. You mean the ISO standards for the snow industry?
Yes. The ISO standards for the industry, the ASCA, Kevin Gilbride and others created, right? And then myself, Jim Anderson, who was my key operations manager at the time, participated the most, to be honest. And yeah, it was just a bunch of people in the snow industry trying to come upon and talk through every possible scenario that could happen and make sure you get a clear definition that's real for the industry.
How many contractors in the US or US and Canada are ISO certified for snow?
I don't know what the latest update is. I know even though we helped create the stuff on the front end, we were probably the 20 something that became certified. There were people who went through the program in their businesses faster. I don't know where the final count is now. There's a good handful of us here in the Detroit area that are.
Wow. Okay. Does it help? Let me think how to ask this. Do you use ISO in the landscape side?
Yeah, we use a lot of the tactics or styles of creating decisions that you learn from ISO, and documenting them and making sure that they're implemented internally. So yes, but we're not ISO certified in the summer.
So what I think I'm hearing you say is you use the standardization model to standardize how you do landscaping. Is that what you said, or you said something different?
Well, more the process from beginning to end, meaning from the bid process and the consummation of a sale, all the way through the operations and through the office administrative side, and back out the far end of the deal, so to speak, so that nothing is just done like, Troy calling in, oh, hey, can you guys run over and do blah, blah, blah? That's not our process or our system. So we are very much not shooting from the hip, bouncing all over the place. And even when we do once in a while, it's in our meeting rhythms to every week find out what went direct to operations. Did a salesperson or somebody call from the field and say, hey, can you run out here and do X? That really shouldn't be happening if you're properly planning any job. So emergencies happen, right? But it really shouldn't be happening. So we make sure we pick that up in our meeting rhythm, make sure we get it back into the job box, if you will, and track it and try not to have it happen. Try to plan ahead so that shooting from the hip, bouncing all over the place is really not our model. In the summertime.
It's funny how in landscape you plan to not have emergencies if you plan well, and snow you plan for the emergencies.
Yeah, it's ironic, but even inside the emergency, there's a routine. There's a very specific routine and timing and how long you stay somewhere. And because snow, just Captain Obvious here. When the events when it just snows all day or for days are the ones that are the most challenging, because you're never what's finished. You shovel or plow that side of the parking lot, and then by the time you're done, it's covered again. So, there's process inside of that, and how often do you return, and what areas do you focus on for safety? Because you can't have the whole place safe. You can't. There's a controversial term in the world of snow called zero tolerance. And the ASCA and ANSI certify, there is a definition for it, which means it's impossible. If you paraphrase the definition, it's impossible. Yeah, there are snow contractors who have trademarked the name and use it in a different way. It's in contract language, yet it's impossible. It's impossible to catch a snowflake before it hits the ground. Therefore, zero tolerance is, in the legal world, is not a true statement.
Right. Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's a concept for really high level of service, which we all understand what it means. But in the purest of sense, there's no such thing as zero.
Right. I'm
it
thinking
will.
it's like zero. Zero is the same as infinity, and you can't really,
Yes.
right? You can't get there.
Right. Yeah, well put. You can't get there. So why say you can? But it's out there. It is properly defined in my opinion, properly defined or fairly defined inside
So
ASCA.
hospitals, I'm assuming, are zero tolerance. How do you address that?
Well, you hear that word a lot. Well, in our case, we have this educational conversation that, to your point, zero and infinity are impossible. So therefore we have to be, I understand what you want. How frequently do you want to pay us to do and redo and do and redo is really the question. Do you want it every, like, continuous? You do all the way around the building and then you do all the way around the building. You just keep doing this. Do you want particular areas highlighted and then come back to the other areas? It's really a little deeper dive into the highest priority areas of the whole of the site, because it is, again, impossible to have every square inch of everything cleared simultaneously.
So you called it risk mitigation, which I understand, but what I'm hearing you say, this is a question. So do you have to rewrite your clients' contracts or add addendums that removes those impossibilities out?
Yes, sir. All the time. And you have to understand indemnification and subrogation. A lot of the clients we deal with don't intentionally put that language in there. Their boilerplate contracts that then get snow bolted to them. But you have to be very careful what you assign, and you have to politely educate potentially the property manager, the person you're working with, because again, they didn't write the contract. But the phrase any and all is extremely dangerous, as opposed to we will be responsible for any and all negligence or any and all of our behavior. But you will find in contracts frequently it's any and all behavior from anybody who's on the site. Very broad language can be used, and it's you just got to be careful to communicate it with the client. When you have a good educated conversation, the language always gets fixed, and you move on. But I do find that the majority of my competitors, at least in this market, it seems like they don't have this conversation, because when we're talking to customers, they haven't had somebody talk about this with them.
Which means they're taking a fear-based approach. We don't have control. We don't have authority. We have to say yes. Or do you think it's even worse, which means they just don't know?
I think it's a little bit of both, depending on who. I think it could go either way. And so back to a new contractor getting in the industry, these things are out there, and the more you get involved with the associations that will help educate you, the more you get involved with a local helpful contractor that will help you learn these things, then there's nothing worse than getting started in a business and getting beat up right out of the gates because you just simply didn't know something, or you signed a contract and now you get taken advantage of. So that's all. Just buyer beware, as always.
Something you said a little while back, I just want to highlight. When I've worked with lawyers, they believe it's their job to protect you at the cost of the other person. And so I could see where there would be clauses in contracts that the lawyers put in that the person you're negotiating with may not realize how black and white that contract is written.
Yes, 100%. The phrase would be they're very onerous, right? So they're written not like a partnership, right? It really is a partnership between, in any of what we all do, between vendors and customers. So again, we will always adamantly say we're 100% responsible for anything we do wrong. anything we do negligent, I mean, anything we run into or hit, or if it snows and we don't show up, or all those obvious things, of course we're responsible. However, we're not responsible. I mean, I've had guys get sued for slip and falls inside buildings because there was a puddle inside. Who knows where that came from? We've had I could talk about slip and fall for the entire podcast. We get sued every single year and have for almost 40 years. So I have an extreme sensitivity to making sure that the contracts are properly written. Because I got burned as a young man very early on. And super unfortunate. So I warn everybody of that.
Do the snow associations teach contract law? I don't mean, nah, this is going to be kind of funny. I don't mean to the extent where they're actually taking responsibility or liability, but do they have courses on this?
100%. Both ASCA and CIMA, but ASCA was founded around all of these situations. The whole focus of so the very first mastermind session there was, 70 to 100 of us in Cleveland from all over both countries, whiteboarding, if you will, or throwing out there, what are your biggest issues in the industry? What could an association do the most to help? It's not sell you the next piece of equipment. It's not, right. I mean, I'm not discounting that, but that's not as important. So in the end, it became insurance, because there's not a single snow contractor who can get tier 1 class A insurance in snow. It doesn't exist for any of us. So we're all surfing insurance at a different level. Tons. I mean, we are the poster child for frivolous lawsuits. I slipped and fell. I'm hurt. At the end of the day, just give me 20 grand or 10 grand or 30 grand or some number and I'll go away. So same thing. I could do an entire podcast, or so could any of the key players at the ASCA. Prior to COVID, we were at Washington, D.C. annually working on Rule 11 and the laws that changed back in the early 90s that affected a lot of this. There are several states that Kevin and others have gotten the indemnification laws changed. Michigan is not one of them yet. We have not gotten through here. You get a lot of pushback from the retailers, and you get a lot of pushback from large property owners, which is unfortunate, because we're all saying we're going to be, for instance, we could get drug into a lawsuit for a pothole. And I've been last year, I could probably got 5 of them in the last 30 years where somebody hurt themselves by falling in a pothole, and now the snow contractor's involved. I don't create potholes. I don't maintain potholes. I don't fill potholes, but I'm in the lawsuit. And so that burns up your insurance money, for those who are familiar with how commercial insurance works, right? You get caught up in a lawsuit, then they assign a value of what it might be, and that works against you until you're proven innocent. So our system really is a little bit broken. It's still the best in the world, but we are, in the snow industry for sure, we're guilty until proven innocent. And that costs you money and time. And so the more educated you are, and the more best offense is a good defense sometimes. So the properly written contract. And after that, it's just documentation, live documentation, and all of the technologies out there in the world have really helped that over the years. Because you can time in and time out, you can take picture, you can do all of this, no matter whose time system you're using. You can get live information and accurate information, and really, like, back to mitigate your risk.
So all this to prove that it wasn't your fault, or you weren't there.
Right. The whole time. I mean, the parking lot's melted, the pile, like, we clearly did our job, but now what time were you there, and how long were you there, and how much salt did you use? And did you use enough deicer on the sidewalks? And the list goes on. What was the temperature? What's the science behind that? Salt doesn't work as well at colder temperatures. Magnesiums and chlorides and liquids and all the different chemical makeups to get different results in different temperatures can come into play as well.
Yeah. I've heard that because of the insurance, at least in Ontario, there's an inordinate amount of contractors getting out of snow. Is that accurate? Is that happening here in the U.S.?
It happens in certain markets. The East Coast has been laden with it for years. Like, it's been much harder. There have been insurance companies just saying, I'm out. I'm not going to insure you. I don't care. I don't want to insure snow contractors. So there's a lot to it in particular markets. Detroit region that we work in is very litigious, but you can still get insurance. You can, and again, in our case, we are, but let me put it this way, there's a cost to all of this. All these things we've just talked about, ISO, or even just running process and system, is costly inside a business. It takes people's time and energy. It takes the proper software. It takes somebody double checking it on a regular basis and making sure it's accurate, on and on. So pre-site and post-site inspections, whether you're ISO or not, so many contractors fail to do this. And it is, again, and I can do another 40-year podcast on all the damages that people have tried to blame us for. Right. The world is spread thin. Property managers don't all go to all of their sites everywhere around, depending how many sites they have. So if you're not documenting the site, like right now before the season starts, so we have countless hours into that. Every curb, every island, every pothole, anything you can find that may or may not be damaged, or may or may not get damaged during the snow world. Pictures, videos, time-stamped, all of it. Countless hours on the front end of the season, and then back at the end of the season. If we've done damage, we let the customer know, hey, here's your before picture, here's your after picture. We took that curb out clearly. We're replacing the curb for you.
So let me ask you, is there an advantage, or there's both advantage and disadvantage to maintaining in the summer or the green season and the snow?
Yes.
As you're talking, I can just imagine pros and cons. So what's the net? Is it better to have snow only, or better to have a comprehensive year round?
Yeah, I don't know what we'd have to clarify what better is. I mean, there's a lot of snow only people out there that seem to do very well, financially, and have some freedom in their summer, and they don't have to worry about all of the things that come with the summer maintenance business. But we prefer to have control of the whole thing. Yes, it's a double-edged sword. But in our case, it has created, over the years, the key customers are advocates. They're not customers. They're busy telling all their friends in the industry, like, this is how you should do it. And they're not, I have a pet peeve. We damage, some lawn gets ruined. You've got salt that goes into this. Even if you don't throw the salt in the lawn, the salt goes in the snow goes in the lawn's pH level changes, and now you kill some lawn. Well, why don't we redesign some of this landscape so that where the snow piles go, this isn't a every year ridiculous behavior of replacing sod that's going to die again next winter because it's the only place we can put a snow pile. So personally, I find it as a very educational for the customer. It's open and honest, transparent. Let's not put things where they're not going to live. Or let's make a spot for the snow pile.
Yeah. It sounds like you like comprehensive, but also long-term win-win partnerships.
Yes. Well, I don't know where I came up with this, but I was presenting to some property managers, and they were all young. And I don't know, my kids are all 26 to 33. Somewhere along the line, my analogy is finding a contractor is not, in my world, is not like swiping right or left. Finding a contractor is like getting married. Okay. It's a long journey. It's a long journey. It doesn't work out every day, but you're willing to make it work together, and you're going to get through this, right? That's more that's more the relationship we have with our long-term customers then. Although, there's probably some swipe rights and lefts mixed in there, I'm sure. But it's not our model.
Someone's working on an app for snow contractors. Swipe right. Right.
Well, yeah, local guy here, Brandon, lawn gurus. So you can lawn gurus in multiple states now. So you can find a snow contractor or a lawn cutting contractor, kind of like you can find an Uber.
Yeah, but
yeah,
clearly that's not your.
No,
that's not what you want. Yeah.
No.
So let me ask you about. Oh, yeah, just a quick question. So, is your snow consistent year over year? I'm wondering, for the audience's sake, because there's some places where it seems to go up and down, and other geographies where it's very semi-consistent.
Yeah, we would probably land in semi-consistent, but so we're a low. If you look at a 30-year average, we're in the low 40s of inches. In my lifetime, we've had as low as 16 or 17 inches, as high as almost 100. In the last 10 or 15 years, we've had as low as 25 and as high as almost 100. But we're not in one of those super outskirt areas, or holy smokes, Buffalo that got 4 feet of snow or whatever on their first snow event. That's of the year. That's crazy. No, there are people are fending off and dealing with a whole lot more snow than I do. That's for sure.
Snow contracts. Talk to me a little bit about your philosophy there. What I've seen really is this whole portfolio approach to mitigate your own risk. Is that how you approach it?
Yes, as best you can. We want stuff that fits we do the best to fit our equipment and fit our people. But at the end of the day, and fit the type of contract we want. But this has also evolved greatly over my career. Early on, it was all pay to play. If it snowed, you got paid. If it didn't, you really didn't get paid. So now that contracts have evolved, we are huge proponents of what's called a floor and ceiling contract. So in our 40 some inch winter, we want a fixed number up to about 30 inches of snow, which is very common around here. And then pay us more as it goes up, or if it doesn't go up, no point in paying us.
What's the ceiling? I heard the floor.
Well, it depends. It could be a 30 to 40. It could be 35 to 45. It could be, depends where the client, all negotiable. Or it could just be a number up to 30 inches, and then you just pay forever on the way up. We also partner a lot with, and have over the years, with Robert Holmes at Spectrum Insurance. If you've heard of Robert's at a lot of the national events. Robert is one of the key snow insurance brokers in the country, and so very helpful there. We were well insured when we had a 95-inch winter, and that was very helpful. This year we insured for low snow. Kind of just a gut feeling that maybe we won't get enough. Back to risk mitigation and looking at the contract mix. So this year we have a couple substantial contracts that only pay us when it snows. And our supply yard, as I mentioned earlier, is at risk if it doesn't snow. Not much mulch we're selling in January, so to speak. So so we cover ourselves that way too. The financial side of all these businesses is important to understand.
Did I just hear you say you use your supply yard as in the whole risk portfolio?
Well, it's a separate entity, but its risk is it carries it's millions of dollars, carries a much higher risk if it doesn't snow. The contracting side gets paid no matter what, more or less. Our risk is not as high.
So do you go for more seasonal contracts to balance it out?
Yeah, well, there's a whole blend. I mean, people call seasonal, we call it all inclusive, right? So if it's everything, no matter what, we're not huge. I mean, we have several of them. We're not huge fans of it, but I don't find it fair to both parties. because you're trying to pick a number, as I shared earlier, our snow can vary from 25 to almost 100. So a 400% swing in the amount of work we're going to do, that's not fair to either party. So we prefer some kind of floor and ceiling or some kind of cap. And then if it gets ugly, we'll pay for that. Or we've offered insurance to customers over the years. Certain clients have teamed up with us to buy their own insurance. So they know that once it gets north of 60 or 70 inches, they no longer are paying any money. Their premium was already built into the previous money. So we could have a 100-inch winter. The insurance is now paying us.
Yeah.
Their service never stops. And
who writes
there's
that
no
insurance?
the same Spectrum, Robert.
Okay.
So and it would be backed by Lloyd's of London and other people like that. So it's
Reinsurance.
yeah. And like any insurance, it's weather insurance. If you can define it, people have been using it in the utility industries for years. If there aren't enough hot days or aren't enough cold days, utility companies don't make as much money. So they've been using it for risk mitigation for decades.
Yeah.
Weather derivatives can be bought and sold. That's a different financial tool. So yeah, I suggest anybody, like anything you're get into, get educated on as many pieces of it as you can and decide what you want to use or don't use.
It sounds like you're betting it's going to snow.
At the end of the day, Jeffrey, we always just hope on average. Give or take, average is good. My team gets the hours they need, right? So the other part of our model is we don't lay anybody off. So we're here to keep people year round and pay their benefits and their health care.
You mean the 100 people, not the 300?
Yeah. Yes. The 300 is a spike of part-time and service providers, but the 100-ish people, no, we don't want to lay anybody off.
By service providers, you mean subcontractors? Just so clear.
Yeah. But they really are. It's just a better way to brand it, and it's actually real. I mean, they are service partners. We very rarely completely subcontract a project. Being who we are in our model, my supervisors, my area managers are still on the sites. Sometimes we'll hire somebody to plow the snow while we're doing the sidewalks, or vice versa. So frequently the model looks more like that, as opposed to handing the keys to somebody else and they do the entire project.
Got it. Do you have, just back to this whole full-time and sub and service providers?
Yeah.
So do you bring in winter part-time non-sub labor?
Yes. As many as we can find typically. Years ago, if I just went back 6 or 7 years ago, the people count was very different. There were very few subcontractors and almost all performed internally. But the labor market's been a little pinched to try to we do fine getting full-time employees, but getting those to show up only when it's snowing has been more challenging.
No kidding. Where do you find them?
Yeah, we don't find very many. That's the model. We don't find very many. I mean, we used to go from close to 100 to 200. I mean, we find 100 people that would come when it snows and run loaders or run our plow trucks no. So it's been the last 6 or 7 years, even before COVID, we have this stuff has had effect. And so we've had to, adapt. We've had to get rid of some equipment because it's snowing like heck out. And I'm sitting at my yard looking at 10 loaders that aren't moving because we don't have operators. Well, I don't need those. So it's really evolved. I hope it goes back the other way, but we haven't given up on it.
What are they doing when they're not working for you? If they're part-time and even part-time, because you're only paying them when it snows.
Right. Well, it's a big mix, some of them, they have their own businesses, so to speak, but they can get away from that to work for us. Yeah. Gotcha. We pay a very fair wage to have you come, bust your butt all night long. So anyway, it all comes together. It all works. But yeah, I mean, I just, neither we're both from the same era in time, so to speak. High school kids and college kids were happy to come work. They'd call, like, here comes Christmas break, when they're, hey, call us. Yeah, not a lot of that seems to happen anymore, or at least not like it used to.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if H2B, if there was a version of that would help.
there is, but you have to. There is. It's a little complicated though for those of us who then need those same folks in the summer. So it just changes your months, right? H2B is, as we both know, and a lot of your listeners, I'm sure. I mean, it's very seasonal, right? So it doesn't just have to be a summer seasonal thing. It has to be winter, but the risk is also, if you bring in a bunch of these people, you're paying them full time. So you better have something for them to do if it's not snowing.
Yeah. It would change your contracts if you
went. Yes, sir. Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
Interesting. This is not a podcast about immigration law, or H2B law. We won't be talking about that in depth. So,
but I would participate in any one of those brainstorming meetings, though.
You mean if we could get the actual Senate or House in that same meeting?
Yes, sir. Exactly what I mean.
That would be awesome. I would pay just to listen into that one.
Yep.
So you have a supply house or supply business.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's a 4-season supply yard.
Yep. We just moved. So that took, we started on a little piece of property 10, 11 years ago, something like that. So our grand opening in the new location will be this month in December. We're waiting for our final certificate of occupancy and so forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've stepped it up. We're 30,000 feet this time. I bought an old crane building, so you can pull semis in there and dump salt. So the salt is warm and dry. Proper scales, all the normal things you can picture outside in the yard, bins holding mulch and stone and gravel. We're a Unilock dealer. We're adding now, and so now the inside of this store will kind of rival. It's fun. Between now and spring, we're deciding how many. Not only do we want to carry things like you would see inside of a Home Depot or a Lowe's, we've got racking systems and shelves. But we're working hard to mix in other ideas to cater to the local communities. The contractors, we're carrying whatever they want. So we're taking care of the local contractors. But when it comes to the local residents, and this thing is in Livingston County, which is a very affluent county in Michigan. And so we're looking to carry other stuff. We've talks of solar panels and charging stations, and maybe we're renting some cool cars. Who knows? We have space.
Sorry, renting cool cars?
Yeah. Would you we want to run a Corvette for the day, or
can I take you to the track?
Yes, you can. Conversion vans, box van, I don't know, stuff that, again, the point is to take care of the local residents. That business is, it's dissected. You have all your contractors that we're pretty good at, I think. I mean, we're contractors. We take care of contractors like we want to be taken care of. But the residential side, we're looking for something more than just, Mr. and Mrs. Jones stopping by for 5 yards of mulch in the spring. I mean, they're driving by our place, so what else could we have that would interest them?
So, Troy, you're running. I mean, that's two different businesses.
I only listed the ones that are in our industry, so there are others.
No, but I mean, there's wholesale to contractors, then there's retail to consumers. Is that all? Is that in the same building?
Yes, the 30,000 foot building on 4.5 acres. So we have plenty of room to do all of this stuff. So it's what the heck,
Is it equally profitable? I mean, more or less.
Well, it's not equal in size yet. So it's not equally profitable. By percentage, it's chasing the contracting company, so it's behind it. But it's been in a heavy growth mode, right? There's been a lot of reinvestment over 10 years to go from nothing to a company that has more salt, warm and dry salt in stock for anybody to come load than virtually than the counties do around here. So we're working on getting some other lines of customers to come in. Maybe the municipality should just buy from us, shall I say? Why do they need us? Why do they need a salt bin?
Are you buying tankers of salt from Egypt or wherever it comes from, or through Egypt?
Yeah. Well, I have. I'm not good with no. Somebody tells me no, you can't have something. If I want it, I'll figure it out. So, yeah, we have when salt became short. Yes, we brought ships from Egypt and put them on the port in Detroit. Guarded them 24 hours a day for the entire winter. One truckload of salt is many, many, many thousands of dollars if it slips out of there at night when you're not watching. So we went through that process. The crazy salt shortage world has kind of come to an end, at least for now. It probably won't revisit us until it snows 2 or 3 years in a row. That's typically when it repeats. But yeah, we have done that. We've partnered with other large buyers over the years to make sure that we get enough salt. But we are not. I mean, the big salt broker in town is, I don't know. He probably buys at least 3 or 4 times more than we do. So maybe more. So we don't try to compete in the large bulk salt brokerage business. We are much more catering to small contractors, and that's our niche. That's who we're trying to help.
Did you start off in wholesale and then move to consumer retail, or did you start off both?
Both. The first facility I set up on a main road. The zoning was wholesale only, so it said wholesale. But just like every vendor down there's a pool company, the same thing. People pull in and buy pool supplies. So we set it up in that application to see how it would play out. It took a little bit longer than I thought, but it played out well. We outgrew the building and the property. And so here we go. I'm kind of one and done, I think, for this location. This will be good for the rest of my career and whoever takes over from there.
Are you building a succession team in your business?
That's another entire podcast, Jeffrey.
That one doesn't end.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yes, I would say yes and no, right? So I have no heir apparent. There is no family in the businesses. They're all successful in their own right. A couple of my kids are entrepreneurs. So obviously I don't do all this stuff I'm talking about. There are key people running every one of these entities and teams of people running them. And the beauty is that they all help each other. So if we're short somewhere, people can help from the other department, the other division. We have enough equipment over the years that we have dedicated construction equipment, dedicated snow equipment, dedicated lawn equipment. So we're not stealing from each other. There's a few overlap pieces, but the majority of them are not. There's CDLA drivers on the supply yard. There's CDLA drivers on the tree business. CDLA, so we can push them all into one location for a day or a week or whatever, get done what we need, and then go back to the daily routine. So it's and so there's a bunch of great leaders. At the end of the day, I am just incredibly humbled. We had our Christmas party Friday, and yeah, I don't know, man. I'm an emotional guy. I don't want to go down that road. It's very humbling to look at a crowd of people that have given their lives. Employee number 1 is still with me after 40 years. Employee number 3, we've been together since we were kids, working hard and figuring it out and trying to make more good decisions than bad, but there's been plenty of bad ones along the way.
Yeah. Usually I don't go way back in time at this part of the podcast, but when you emailed me, you said, I got the sense that somewhere in your life, you kind of made a switch that in your approach that sort of helped all this pick up speed and come together. Did I read that right?
Well, depending how I wrote it, I think like a lot of people, I heard in a seminar, oh my goodness, I don't even know how long ago now, maybe 30 years ago, maybe I was 30 years old, that significant emotional events are what can get our attention and change our course in life. And interesting, I just spoke for Brian Fullerton, Brian Lawn Maintenance, who's got a crazy huge YouTube channel. Love Brian, local guy here. And he asked me to speak on the why. So this is how this tooths into this story is. So as I put this presentation together and I look back through all the old pictures and I play back in my mind and my heart all the stuff that happened, my why at 20 years old was nothing more than to prove my mother wrong. It really wasn't any deeper than that. It was like, wait a minute, you're telling me I can't be successful as an entrepreneur, or you're telling me I work too hard, or it just. And I love my mom. I have a lot of great mom stories, but that was kind of like, okay, I'm going to prove her and other people wrong. And then I got some traction and built a business and started buying houses, and people stuck around, and I kind of evolved as a leader for sure, like any of us do. Went through some significant stuff in my late 30s and into 40s, an ugly divorce, and really dug deep at that point into my faith. That this stuff really isn't all mine or any of ours. I believe we are here to serve others and figure out how to make a difference in the lives of other people. And oh, by the way, we need to make some money, and we need to do all the simple worldly things. But so it was that, which is over 20 years ago now. It was that time in life where it became, all right, when I got my teeth kicked in financially. I lost almost everything that I had built from 20 to 40-ish. And, when you're sitting alone on a futon in an old house after you walked away from all the things, and you're like, there's just so much more to life than this. So much more to life. I can't leave a legacy of I knew how to cut grass or I knew how to move snow from one side of the parking lot to the other. So that's really the significant time in life when things changed, for me anyhow. And man, the last 20 years have been the best 20 years of my life. Every year gets better. It's beautiful, actually. So thank you for asking, actually.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. One final question here before I let you go to were you going Christmas parties?
I'm going upstairs to, what time is it? 3:00 here ish. Anyway, no, the big, huge Christmas party's over. And I came in hot from Mexico on Thursday, awards dinner, which was amazing, right? We got some cool awards. I mentioned those earlier. Friday is a huge Christmas party, hundreds of people. There was more stuff yesterday, but today the grandchildren are coming over to help decorate the tree. So that's, I got the tree up. I have the lights on it. Now we'll hang all our ornaments. They're 2 and 4. It's a beautiful time in life. So that's what I'm getting to. So what's your question?
Any predictions? What do you see for the industry? Let's start with the snow, or we spoke mostly about snow. So, but you can give me any prediction you want. Any predictions that you see, changes that we need to get prepared for?
Any predictions that we need to get prepared for? Well, there's probably a few of them. And they're not, I don't know that they're predictions. I think they're somewhat obvious. I think people are, you mentioned fear driven earlier in the conversation. Some people are just afraid to talk to their customers about what's real, right? So we're in a time that reminds me of the 70s, and inflation cost of living increases. The late 70s is when I started, and through the 80s, it was common practice to raise your price every single time. Every single renewal had price increases because the world was costing more. So that's what you did. I would forewarn or predict that everybody should get on that bandwagon and make sure their prices are right to begin with. You need the right baseline, of course, but pricing should change, and you should be able to transparently verify that with your customers. My labor costs went up this much, my insurance went up X, fuel this, and so your price is going up somewhere close to the cost of living. Very fair, and it'll run some people off the edge if they don't do it. In the snow world, there's a big movement out there, and there has been, about salt and how much impact it has in our environment and overusing it and so forth. So there's a big, and I agree that abuse is not good. But what I talked about earlier is imperative. It's imperative that people, until we fix the laws at the federal and at the state level, you can't use less of a product. You can't not salt unless somebody else is going to take the risk. It's a huge double-edged sword. I thought for years, I'm like, I don't salt my own driveway as often as I salt your parking lot. I'd be no, heck no. No way. But I'm not going to sue myself either.
Right.
Like I'll let it melt. But here the old statement in that is, whatever, when you say, well, it'll be warm by, why are you salting at 4 or 5 in the morning? It's going to melt by noon because it's going to get warm out. Just picture yourself saying that in a court of law. I didn't do the work at 4 or 5 in the morning because it was going to melt 6 hours later. And then somebody falls and shatters their hip. It just doesn't work. So my prediction is that there could be some turmoil in the snow industry over that. And just be careful which side of that coin you pick. I am not saying not to take care of the environment, but until the litigation risk is gone, we have to do something to melt the snow. I would hope, really cool prediction. I don't know if the technology is going to catch up with us, but I would hope that the ability, and it'll put most of us out of business, so it's not like I'm excited about it, but the technology to be able to melt the snow as it lands on the pavement. So as the ability to have warm or heated sidewalks, parking lots, and so forth, as that technology becomes more cost effective, the payback on those investments for property owners will far outweigh paying somebody like us to plow and shovel and shovel and salt and salt and salt and shovel. Like, just let the stuff melt when it lands. And that's been around for a long time. It just, most people see it as cost prohibitive on the front end, so they don't do it when they build the buildings. You will find it in random hospitals and other places where they plan ahead, and are willing to keep the front entranceways clear. That technology, we should be able to. I mean, look what we're doing. We're going to the moon. We have electric cars and we have all kinds of things. We should be able to. And I also predict that you will be driving, if you're not already, a much faster electric car than you are fuel driven in the next few years.
I know, I'm very torn on that. Porsche is, I think they've basically already announced that they're done developing gas powered. I don't know if it's all their models, but it's a couple key models, gas powered, and very quickly they'll have electric, but there's no infrastructure for it. That's the crazy thing.
Oh, yeah, it is crazy. It's crazy. We can do everything electric, clearly, if we wanted to. But yeah, the infrastructure behind it, talk about the damage to the environment. I don't think enough people are connecting all the dots on that either over a few generations. Once you do all these batteries, and where do all these cars go, and where does all this lithium and where does all these things go when we're done with them? And really lay that out over a few generations. I don't think enough, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm not in that industry, but
you're not wrong on that, because we would be reading about that if that had
Yeah.
been thought through, for sure. And we don't, as human beings, we thinking ahead already is the challenge, but thinking that far ahead is a big challenge.
It is. It is. So it's a haunted place to live when you profess to be a visionary, no matter where we are in the world. So I have this hard wiring that I wrote an article once that's called "And Then What?" And when, right or wrong, it's a blessing and it's a curse. That's just the way my mind works, and so do so many others. This isn't unique to Troy. But I love to sit with people and connect those dots. Okay, so just like we just did, and then really keep going. Just keep going. Like it's pretty obvious that the next thing happens and the next thing happens, or there's a gap and it goes this way or this way. So in the world, back to my predictions, lawn cutting. I mean, we're going to have right? We have robots. We're going to have more robots. I was in that arena 20 years ago, playing with robot lawnmowers back before 9/11. It's going to have some impact in the industry, and that's good. I mean, to me, I mean, there's a lot of areas that we don't need human beings cutting the grass. It'll change it to 24 hours a day in some applications. So, again, even the stuff we were working on and got this close to bringing to market 20 years ago had cell phone technology built into it and 24 hours and blah, blah, blah. And now likely we can do it with an electric motor. That was with gas. So, that I see a lot more of that on the lawn side to try to eliminate a little bit of the human piece of the puzzle, at least on the generic wide open mowing of the world, not the real custom stuff.
Yeah.
And on the snow side, I don't know if a robot's going to take over anytime soon. Too many challenges in the weather with that stuff, climate and snow and can't see. And at least that's what we ran into when I was digging deep into that market of being able to see at night. Or
what I hear you
ice
saying
conditions.
is, connecting the dots, what I'm hearing you saying is zero tolerance. Let's come back to that.
Yeah.
Really should build heating in and just take care of it themselves.
They should. I know I just did a couple of my clients, we just did completely heated porches and driveways. I did a little addition to my house. I did one little very small area, so I could live with it, for a while personally. I feel like I could speak more intelligently to a topic after I've experienced it personally. So yeah, I don't know. And in the meantime, I don't know. You're going to race some cars. I'm going to shoot off to Mexico, take care of grandchildren, figure out what business to build next. And
excellent.
away we go.
And away we go.
That's what I truly predict. And I will challenge. I can't not be in a situation like this where I don't challenge every business owner. So our philanthropy side, our hot pink deicer, is literally 15 cents added to a $6 to $7 product. And in the end, tens of thousands of dollars a year, every year, off of just that is raised. And families are helped. Every single business owner out there selling whatever they sell or providing whatever service or product they sell can add some nominal percentage or number. In our case, it's not a percentage. It's a flat out number, 15 cents.
Yeah.
And pick a cause and get after it. Like what's near and dear to their heart. Who do they want to help?
I really like this.
The world would be a better place.
Wait, hold on. Give me a couple more minutes here with you. I like this idea a lot. So 15% more than nominal. It's a nice chunk, but it's just for one of your products, right? So it's
15. It's not at 15%. To be clear, it's 15 cents off of a $6 to $7 product. So it's a very small percentage. We do not go by percentage. We go by units sold.
2 to 3% is something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And you've picked one product that for you is at the heart of what you do, but it's not the only thing you do.
Yep.
and it's something you'd like to provide more of, or you'd like to provide more of.
Well, it's also, we talked around the subject, but salt is it's the least liked product in all of the things that any of us do. Nobody, fertilizer has its issues. Some people are, but salt is just flat out the least. It rots your car, it screws up your threshold, it kills your plants.
Right.
The list goes on,
right.
but it keeps you safe and keeps you from getting sued on the other end. So so we chose that product intentionally to shed a light on it.
I like that idea. I really do. It's a unique, some people give a percentage of their total revenue, and I like how you've attached it to a product so you can talk about it in a more concrete way, I suppose, with your clients and your employees. And
we do all of, not whatever. My personal charitable stuff, my company's charitable stuff, all of the different outreach programs we do, the military families we help, the list goes on, right? There's a ton of business owners out there in the world helping people, right? Usually doing it pretty quietly and not talking about it.
Right.
Just being great servants and humble leader, and just they're doing their, and so we do some of that as well, for sure. But I do think it's a pretty neat challenge to attach it to a piece of the business, for anybody, and be proud of it, and be proud that you're helping whoever it is, whatever your heart desires.
Do you think being humble and quiet about it is the right thing to do? I'm kind of putting my answer in the question. Wouldn't we provide more value to our communities if all our clients knew what we were doing?
Yes, I think we would. Although that's a debate that if we had 5 to 10 people on this podcast right now, there'd be varying opinions. There are a lot of people who don't like to share their generosity. I do believe, and especially in a world today where podcasts, social media posts, I guess let me put it this way. I think a post about helping somebody in some way has more value than what people just had for dinner when they post that. I think there's more value. Although I like some of the dinners I see in mine, I'm like, hey, I didn't get that. It looks awesome. But admittedly, I think a movement to get people focused on helping others in whatever way that means. I think it's better to be boisterous about it than to be quiet about it.
Listen, live by the sword, die by the sword. What I mean is, in the United States, we are a capitalist society. My wife is Dutch, right? So she's from Europe. You could call it socialism. The government takes care of you. I do believe people donate less and volunteer less there because it's sort of built into the system. And here, self-reliance, we depend on, and we have more donations and volunteering. I believe. I don't bet on that. Don't go to Vegas with that, but I'm pretty sure about that. So I think part of that needs to be this promotion of it.
Well, I'm in. I'll help in any way. I agree. I believe that our freedom is the most important thing that we have. And when we vote particular ways, we give away some of our freedoms, and we, in my opinion, and we empower the government, or we empower entities to do things for us.
Yeah.
Including potentially, in your example, over time, let the government take care of the charity work as well. I don't agree with that model. I mean, sure. Maybe some do. Maybe some do. I believe that we should be free to decide where our money goes, or where our treasures, our time, our talents. It doesn't just have to be money. I mean, it at all. Yeah. It can.
Now you're taking this in a. Now you're adding. Now you're going to a whole different podcast. All I meant to say was,
well, let's go. Call me.
this is this is how we're this is our country's this is how we're this is I don't know what I'm trying to say here. This is the law of the land. This is how we work. And so if people are dependent on our help, then promoting the fact that helping is good and let's all be part of this, I would hope would make more people want to give and help.
I would hope you're right.
Okay. We've discussed quite a bit here, Troy. I really appreciate you getting on with me on a Sunday, by the way, here, because you're busy and I'm busy. And
we're both busy, but after church and before Christmas tree decorating, it's all good. I'm very, very appreciative because we bounce dates back and forth a lot. And so thank you for rearranging some of those. And, you know, I've got a funeral tomorrow, which is really just a celebration of a 91-year-old badass. So it's, you know, part of the journey. Troy. So reach out to me anytime, man. And if we want to race some cars around, we should talk about that too.
All right. We will. Guaranteed.
Okay. Cool.